Hello and welcome to Market House, the podcast where we talk all things Disney. My name's Caleb.
And I'm Caitlin, and this week we have a super exciting guest on the show. We have Johnny from the DMSW podcast. Let's dive in.
All right, and this is episode number 99. How insane is that?
I'm so excited.
We are 1 week away from the big 100th episode, and we could use your help. Please head over to markethousepodcast.com. You can either leave us a voice message or send in a written message. Both options will be available right there on the front page, and kind of share your favorite moment on the podcast, your favorite episode, your favorite interview, your favorite guest, what have you. We'd love to hear what you like about the show, either in audio format or written format. Doesn't matter either way. We'd either read it or play it on the show. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, this is such a great opportunity. Again, we are so excited, this being our 100th podcast episode, as well as our 2-year anniversary for the podcast, which is so exciting.
Insane.
I can't even believe it.
I can't believe it. Time has flown by. We love doing this, and thank you so much for sticking around and listening to us. Again, we'll dive into more of that ooey gooey stuff next week. But hey, before we dive into the interview with Johnny, you've already heard in the intro who we have on this week. Could not have been better timing. We couldn't think of anyone better to have before our 100th episode. Johnny from the DMSW podcast. He's the nicest guy in the podcast community. We love talking to him. I would consider him the Marvel Star Wars expert, and we ask him some good questions around that, coming from both two casual fans. We've got no idea what we're talking about when it comes to those two subjects. So we ask the man himself what he thinks about those two amazing properties. Hey, before we dive into the interview, though, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It is a huge help to the show. A written review on Apple Podcast means the world, as well as a rating over on Spotify. Speaking of, we've got one this week.
We do, and this is from Nick Deco, titled Here's to 100 More Great Disney Podcasts. There are a few quality Disney podcasts that have great audio, excellent hosts, insightful content, and can be relatable to most fans. Market House is that podcast. After finding them on Threads, I found Caleb and Caitlin's podcast the perfect budding podcast in this space. Great short episodes with Disney news, what's new in their world, good luck with the baby, ! Trivia and insight to help you feel a part of the Disney magic. Here's to your soon-to-be 100th episode, gang, and to 100 more. Nick, thank you so much. And number one, we're just so thankful for your support. Like, you have just been going above and beyond, just in every angle for us recently, and so we're just so excited.
Yeah, thank you. You've been interacting with us over on social media, and the review means the world. Seriously, thank you so much. Like, we couldn't ask for a better listener. I mean, we love that. We love hearing from you, and the interaction is amazing. So love to hear your feedback, and feel free to send us a DM on Instagram. We'd love to chat over there and talk Disney. And another way you can support the show is over on our Patreon. So if you could do us a favor and go to markethousepodcast.com/support, you'll find more details there about our Patreon page and, again, how to get involved over there. So if you contribute to the show every single month, you get some fun perks over there, some extra content, and we're just having a blast over there in that little tight-knit community. And again, it's just a good way to support the show, and we appreciate you guys doing that in advance. But hey, let's dive into the interview with Johnny. But let me kind of give you some insight here. This is the first of a few Disney parenting episodes. So again, these are going to be kind of scattered out here for the next couple of months. But we wanted to talk to some folks, some experts in both parenting and traveling to Disney, both on the West and East Coasts, and kind of get their insights on how to be a parent at the parks.
Yeah, we're so excited for this. It's something that we've been looking forward to for quite some time. So again, we cannot wait for you to hear the guests that we have lined up for this episode series.
All right, let's dive into the interview with Johnny from the DMSW podcast. Right, the time has finally come. It has been way overdue. We finally have Johnny J from the DMSW podcast, and we are so stoked to talk to him today.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Can't wait.
We are so excited, Johnny. You have absolutely no idea. Like we've discussed right before they started recording, Caleb and I have literally been talking about this all week. We are so excited. We consider you literally our close friend. It feels like you live so close to us and that we just talk to you all the time. But this is like the first time we're like seeing your face live, and we're just so excited for it.
Yeah, it goes both ways, guys. I think we're all been fangirling here all week, getting ready to finally cross paths virtually here, face to face.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Remind me what part of the country you live in because Caitlin's always like, I always think he lives in like Florida, but he doesn't. But I know it's like
I
in
wish, I
Northeast. Yeah,
wish.
Yeah.
in
Someday,
Northeast, right?
someday, fingers crossed. No, I am up in Massachusetts, so
Okay,
I grew up a little bit north of the city, and my wife's family is from south of the city, kind of closer to almost down. We're closer to technically to Providence than we are to Boston, but we're
okay,
about halfway in between Boston and Providence.
very
Not far
nice.
from where the Patriots play. Actually, we're like maybe a 7 minute car ride from Gillette Stadium.
No
Oh,
way.
wow.
So do you get to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
games a lot? You big
Oh
Patriots
yeah,
fan?
big time. Yeah,
Okay,
that was my thing before kind of Disney took off and the podcast. Like sports was, I mean, how do you not grow up in New
sure.
England and just be spoiled rotten by the four major franchises that we have up here, winning championships all through my 20s and 30s. So it's been fun. The my sports life here as an adult to go to as many games as we can here.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a huge baseball fan. I fell off. I'm from originally my family's from St. Louis, and so I'm a huge anything St. Louis fan. So the Cardinals, the Rams when they were there, and then I don't act like I'm a hockey fan, but when I do pay attention, it's to the Blues, of course.
Right.
Of
But
course. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, so when the Rams left, I kind of fell off the NFL train.
Yeah, that'll
But
sting. Yep.
yes, it does. Yeah, when you're like you
Yeah.
LA with your money. But no, it's I'm a giant Cardinals fan, so I'm assuming you're a Red Sox fan then.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. It's been my dream to get over there to Fenway one day. It'll happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the cathedral here. So
That's all.
I'll throw you a quick Cardinal story. Actually, my brother did Air Force ROTC in college, and he commissioned out after graduation. His first base assignment was out in California. So we did a cross country trip when he moved out there to California,
Yeah.
and one of our stops was in St. Louis, and we stayed at the like I think it was the Westin, whatever that hotel is, like directly next to the stadium.
Oh,
That's
that's
And
awesome.
we checked in like kind of late at night. It was already dark out. We get up to the room and we're looking out the window, like drinking a beer, crossed arms, just like looking at the new stadium. We're like, I don't know, man. The Fenway's the best. Like, how do you give up on history and like having
Yeah.
these new fancy pants stadiums? This is ridiculous. This is a wine and cheese park. Like, this is ridiculous.
Sure.
So the next day we did a tour of the park. There was no game going on, but we just kind of went in, just wanted to check it out. And part of it, like they take you down near the dugouts and they put you in the seats and just kind of let you sit around and kind of relax and enjoy it. We weren't in those seats for 5 seconds and we're like, tear it down, time to build a new stadium, we need one of these, this is awesome.
Put those tax dollars at work. Let's get going.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
it.
I mean, that is a beautiful stadium. So
Yeah, we love it.
didn't take long before we fell in love with the whole new stadium game.
That's awesome. Maybe we'll get you to be a Cardinals fan one day. We'll work on that.
Sure.
But before we do, let's dive into what we all love here, and that is Disney. We've got a few questions to ask you, kind of a get to know you questions before we dive into the meat of the interview, the conversation. But let's start off with an easy one, a softball. Caitlin, why don't you ask it?
Yes. So this is going to be an easier one, but what is your favorite Disney movie?
This is an easy one. Yeah, definitely. So classic Disney, it would be Robin Hood. That was
Okay.
my go-to growing up. That was the one that I wore out the VHS tape in that white plastic case that we all remember back in the day.
Yeah.
That was like that was the first time I ever cried. I can remember watching in a movie when we thought Robin Hood died there in the jumping out of the castle near the end of the movie. So watched the heck out of that movie growing up. But my kind of modern day favorite here with the Pixar element coming in, it would be Coco. Coco is
Oh,
hands down far and away my favorite. The music is incredible. It's one of those things, like it's a culture that like I have no background whatsoever in that, no experience with that, but seeing it on screen, it's just everything is just beautiful and amazing. And like I said, the music is crazy, but the real thing that got me with that movie was just I kind of have a bias, I think, towards the kind of the subject matter in there a little bit. My grandfather growing up was a huge part of my life. I had a very close relationship with him. And as he got older, unfortunately, he developed dementia, which turned into Alzheimer's. So a lot of those scenes where they're kind of talking to the grandmother and there's like
Mhm.
nothing going on, like those just majorly were just hitting home.
Hmm.
Sitting there, I remember I took my kids to see it. It was my wife stayed home with the youngest, and I was there with the older kids, and we were watching the movie. And especially come like that final scene in the movie, I was like bawling like my dog just died, like
Hmm.
Yeah.
hardcore crying in the movie theater. And my kid's like, "Dad, what's wrong?" And he
Yeah.
just completely emotions just washed over me with just the when the grandmother, like you could see those moments are so few and far between where like that memory comes back and it's like, oh my god, like the
Mhm.
person's there and you can see each other and talk to each other again. And that's exactly what it's like when you're seeing somebody go through dementia and Alzheimer's, where it's 80-90% of the time there's just nothing going on, the
Hmm.
dots aren't connecting, and then you'll sit with them for an hour and then all of a sudden you'll get 20 seconds of they recognize you. And
Right.
man, it just to this day I cannot watch that movie without crying every single
Yeah.
Oh my
time. So
gosh. Oh,
love
Johnny, I'm
love that movie, love Coco.
yeah, I'm so sorry to hear about that, by the way. That's no fun to go through. And, sometimes it's when you're watching the movies, I feel like that was a time where like Disney really connected with your emotions with that movie specifically.
Yep.
So being able to have that type of memory, although it is sad, I'm sure it brought you like happiness and comfort in like some way or another. But
Sure.
I have to admit, I'm not gonna lie, I am a mess every time I watch that movie, and currently
Sure.
everything
Yeah.
because of what's going on. But no, I can't agree with you enough. Coco is just beautiful, and just the story behind it, and just the soundtrack. We literally play it nonstop here, and I sing at the top of my lungs. So definitely agree with the Coco pick. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
excellent, awesome, good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Next question, not as easy. Okay, so this one we usually ask folks if you can make what is the it's one change, right, to the parks or something.
Right.
We know what it would be for you, and I don't want to speak for you. I think it has to. It rhymes with Shmeeny Blus, but I changed the question for you because I know how much you despise the service. So we're going to ask you if you can make only one change to Genie Plus, what would it be? So you can't rip the I'm sorry, the service out or anything, but if you can make one tweak to it, which one would it be?
Oof. It's hard to pin it down to just one. I feel like
No,
that scene
I know.
in Ace Ventura where he's like, and he's ready to go on a 8-minute diatribe on that. But oof, I mean, like I said, to me, I think the easy thing for people to knock on Genie Plus, and as a guy that cannot stand Genie Plus, hates the system, just easy to say, oh, you only hate it because Disney charges for it now, and what the system used to be free. Now they charge you for it. That's why you hate it. I really don't hate that part of it. I mean, it does stink, but that's part of the Disney game. I think we all understand Disney is a premium service, whether it's the parks, the hotels, the cruises, anything you do with the Disney name, you're going to be paying a little bit more than you would for whatever the equivalent is on something else. And I accept that. I go into it knowing that. So I don't even really mind at the end of the day that they've come up with a new system that they need to charge for, especially coming out of the pandemic. They're a business. They need to do what they need to do. They lost all that revenue for being shut down for so long. So it's a business. You got to make tough decisions. You got to bring in the profits where you can. So it's really not the fact that they charge you for it. It's me being a salesman too in my real life job. It's like that horrible sales pitch where you just feel like it's like snake oil salesman just lying to you. Like, you're telling me that you're coming out with this new system because you listen to the fans and you're trying to improve the guest experience. Nonsense. Like,
Hmm.
you're just be honest. Like, you lost a lot of money, you need to make some revenue, you need to find some new revenue. It is what it is. So I guess if you're gonna charge me money for it, you have to improve upon what the product used to be. And to me, the product just does not perform up to the standards, even on its best day, as to what we used to have with the old system that used to be free. So again, I guess hard to pin it down to one thing, but maybe just either just don't charge for it anymore, or if you are going to charge for it, then you guys change whatever you need to change, but just make it perform better than what used to be there before.
No, that's fair. I like that. We were talking about that the other day. We were going off on. We were reminded of like, okay, back in the day when we had like the annual pass system, and we would happily pay extra for Max Pass, which was our version of your guys's. We had a kind of a
Yep.
scaled down version of your Max Pass Plus or whatever you call Fast Pass Plus,
Yep.
and so it was optional. you could either do the free version, which was you're running around getting paper tickets, which was fun,
Yep.
or you could pay $10 extra per day or $5. It was so cheap, and you got to do it digitally. And I mean, you thought you were king and queen of Disney. Like, you got to go on any ride as many times as you wanted. It worked like it should, like you were talking about. So yeah, you're right. We've taken a step down, and now we don't have a choice but to pay money for it. So
Yeah,
totally agree.
It's a bummer. You already know we could do a whole podcast series.
Yeah.
on Genie Plus.
Part 1, 2, 3, and 4 coming your way.
Oh my gosh. But then next up for a question, this one is a little tricky, but we love to ask guests that come on the show. But if you could, which rides would you swap between Disneyland and Walt Disney World? So it could be something like Matterhorn for Expedition Everest, Guardians for Tower of Terror, like just that sort of gist.
Sure. So I'll give you 2 answers here. One, if we're just sticking to same name, same ride, but just give me the other version, I want your guys' version of Space Mountain. I
Okay.
hate the Magic Kingdom version of Space Mountain. Our Space Mountain over here in Florida is very similar to your Matterhorn. Like, the ride vehicle is like you're almost like laying down directly on the track, and it's a chiropractor adjustment every time you do that ride. So just not a fan of that experience here in Magic Kingdom. But the last time that I was out there in Disneyland earlier this year, back in May, everybody was like, we got to get him on Space Mountain. He has to ride our version. He has to see how different it is. And it is completely night and day. It is a legit fun, good experience, good ride in the Disneyland version. So if we're sticking to just name on name, then let's swap Space Mountains. And if it's just completely different rides, but kind of still somewhat similar, then let's trade out roller coasters. You guys can have basically any roller coaster you want. I'll give you Everest. I'll give you a Rock and Roller Coaster, but I want the Incredicoaster. The
Really?
Incredicoaster is one of my favorite rides there in DCA. Love it. Guardians Mission Breakout is my number 1 favorite ride in any Disney park whatsoever, but I'm totally fine with Tower of Terror here. I actually like having the different versions. Gives you a reason to kind of bounce back to,
Sure.
to
For sure.
either coast, but if I could find a way to get the Incredicoaster over here, that is to me better than any roller coaster we have over here in Disney.
Okay, so
Disney
can I
World.
ask you, would that answer be the same if it was California Screamin'? Did you like it as much, or is it the Incredicoaster overlay that makes it for you?
Yeah, I never got to do it as California Screamin'. I've only done it with the Incredicoaster, but to me, I mean, that's without really knowing what the California Screamin' version was. My favorite part of the Incredicoaster is hearing that Incredibles music
Yeah.
in your ear the whole time. That's, to me, one of the best things Disney does is pump in music while you're on the ride. That's what makes both of the new Guardians rides on your coast and my coast, both of our Guardians rides, to me, it just jacks up that level of fun and makes it an even better experience when you mix the music into it as well.
Awesome. No, I like that.
I love
makes
that
it more
ride.
exhilarating.
Especially smelling the
Yeah.
cookie. Like,
Oh, yeah, that
we
too.
love riding it at
I love that
night.
part where it's like cookie nom nom. You're like,
God.
okay, so I was going to ask you one question to end it out, but it's a 2-part. So first I'm going to start off with one, and then you could end with what I was originally going to ask you. So curveball here, my apologies. First
all
question
good.
would be, so you're the, again, I'm going to remind everyone, DMSW is Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, correct? Is that kind of what it all
Yep.
stands for? Okay, so
Bingo. Yep.
you
got
are
it.
way more of a fan of Marvel and Star Wars than I would even claim to be. Caitlin and I are both casual Star Wars and Marvel fans. We like them. We enjoy them. We definitely miss a couple of the releases. Like, we still haven't seen the new Ant-Man. We haven't seen a handful of
Mhm.
Marvel movies. We've caught
Mhm.
all the Star Wars movies, but I don't know the lore as well as you do. But I'm going to ask you, as a casual fan to a mega fan, what the heck is going on with both Marvel and Star Wars? Is it true what Iger's saying, that it's just are we getting tired of it? Are consumers just like, we'll just catch the next one? Or do you think it's a quality issue? I'd love to get a take from someone that loves those two brands. Like, what is going on with the studios?
Yeah, sure. So I think part of it on the Marvel side, at least, we can attack that one first. I mean, they did such a fantastic job building around the Infinity Saga and having that set plan, I think, from right out of the gate, they already knew long term, like, hey, if Iron Man works, this is going to be the next piece in the puzzle. And if that piece connects as well and people go see that, then it brings in 3 and 4. And they always had a plan. They were always thinking 3-4 steps ahead down the path to kind of building towards this entire Infinity Saga. And I think when they wrapped that up, that was such just an insane movie going experience as far as almost the entire history of movies in general goes. To be able to wrap, and you think of most movies that have a trilogy, they can't even wrap up that third movie the right way without most people being like, well, 1 was pretty good, 2 was really good, but then 3, like, it all fell apart. It was like they forgot what they were doing or something. And
Yeah.
Marvel found a way to have, what was it at the time? I think 21 or 22 or whatever it was. It was over 20 movies. Then they had Infinity War and Endgame wrap it all up, and they hit on so many different marks and paid back so many little write-off sentences and write-off lines and random scenes that they found a way to kind of like bring it back to you, like, oh yeah, I remember that, or I remember that line. And all those things are so hard to build on over a long period of time. And I think when that finally wrapped up, it was almost like you could like picture them being in a boardroom being like, okay, like, we had this long-term plan. Let's just kind of go crazy here. And coming out of the gate with this new thing, let's bring in different directors that we've never used before, and let's kind of like let them kind of do their passion project. I think that's what we saw with Chloe Zhao with the Eternals movie. That was a very different experience. And I think Taika Waititi kind of hit a home run with Thor Ragnarok, and I think they were like, hey, you hit a home run with that one, do whatever you want with Love and Thunder. And I think he was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And now he's like, just went way too far
Sure.
with the comedy
Yeah.
and that one. So like, to me, that's just kind of the vibe I get, is it's almost like, let's kind of just gently build on some overarching storyline to the future, but let's really kind of come out of the gate here in phase 4 and into maybe phase 5 even, and let's just go crazy and just try new stuff and try new things. So I think it's just a different style. Like, you're not building towards a bigger project this time. So you're gonna have some hits, like I think we had with Guardians 3 and the Spider-Man one when they brought back the old Spider-Man. So you got a couple really good hits in there, but you definitely have some swings and misses too.
Yeah, makes sense. Final question, and then we'll get into the main topic here. But what made you want to start your podcast? What made you want to go, like, I'm going to go buy a mic and talk into it for an hour every single week? Like, it is such a weird concept. Like, when we remind ourselves, like, what we do every single week, I'm like, why do we do this?
Mhm.
I mean, we know why we do it. It's a blast. But what made you kind of want to take that step and start doing this?
Sure. So I think to kind of get into how it became a podcast idea was how it became a Disney fan first. And for me, I feel like I kind of have a little bit of a different angle or a different backstory into how I even became a really big Disney fan. And I went, I think, twice growing up with my family, when I was in elementary school once and then in middle school once. And I did go in high school as well. Actually, I went with marching band, and we marched actually in Magic Kingdom. So
Oh, nice.
only went 3 times growing up, but like I never had that like real like close connection to, like, I watched the Disney movies like those, but like my parents, my family members, my friends, nobody was like a real like big Disney crazy fan. So that wasn't coming into my life. So I never experienced Disney in that way. And then once we got married, started having kids of our own, my wife was kind of at that point where she's like, all right, the kids are getting older. We need to, at some point here, we got to do that first Disney trip with them. And I was that dad that was like, no, it's too expensive and they're not going to remember it. And why would he spend all those thousands of dollars for something that they're not even going to remember? And it was kind of like, you could see like my wife like, okay, let me go back to the drawing board and come up with a new sales pitch
Yeah.
here to try to convince them. And finally she hit on one. She was like, stop thinking about it as paying all this money for an experience that they're not going to remember. Thinking about, we're paying the money for us as the parents. Like, we're buying a parental experience where we get to go to this magical place and see our kids experience the magic. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. You got me with that one.
Yeah.
So we did that first family trip. We had 4 kids at the time. That was in 2016. And I think it was our second day at the parks. We were at Epcot. We did a character meal at the Garden Grill in the land pavilion there. And the wife and kids had kind of finished up eating. We had seen all the characters, had the interactions, did the autograph books and all that stuff. It was great. One of my twin daughters was kind of hanging back. She had a couple of bites left. So I was like, you guys head out. We'll let her finish up. I'll let her finish up and then I'll meet you guys out there. So she had her last couple bites. And then when we went to leave, as we were approaching the stairs, Mickey was coming around the corner at like just the right time. And he caught her right at the top of the stairs. And he got down on one knee. It was like rubbing her on the top of the head and talking to her, or like, like interacting and talking
emoting.
with her. Yeah, exactly. And he did that thing where sometimes if you see him, like they'll like bring the kid's hand up to their like mouth and that you hear that like kissing sound come out of the costume. He did that, and it was like the only analogy I can give for it is like in the original animated Grinch cartoon movie there, where like his heart grows like 5 sizes and breaks out of the little X-ray machine. That's exactly, it was exactly what happened. Like I had a little Mickey shaped heart and it grew like 10 times the size and burst out of the thing. Just watching that magic wash over my daughter's face, it was just, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And we came running out of the restaurant, and I'm like, go up to my wife, and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is our vacation place now. We are coming here every single year. I am full in. Like, Disney's got me. Like, they hooked me. I am a Disney fan for life. And I went home from that trip and was just full boat into Disney blogs and Disney YouTube channels and just trying to absorb Disney content wherever I could. And then eventually we got into the pandemic, and like I said earlier, kind of sports was my number one hobby. It was, especially being up here in New England, like that was the thing. And when the pandemic hit, I could just feel the passion for sports just kind of come down. It was like, okay, like the whole sports experience was different. You couldn't go to bars with your friends anymore. You couldn't even go to your friend's house. You think about back to like when the pandemic first started, no one was even going to their friends' houses or families' houses. So the only way you could watch sports was alone in your own house, and none of the stadiums had fans there. It was just, it felt fake. It just felt like watching robots on the screen. So like I could just feel like, this just really isn't for me anymore. So with kind of the sports thing kind of coming out of my schedule and having some free time, I just, for some reason, kind of filtered right into the Disney stuff and went even more hardcore into it and started listening to Disney podcasts. And then it didn't feel long where I felt like I was like driving by like the cool kids, like having the pool party in the summer. And I'm like, oh, I want to have one of those parties. So I was like, I don't need to go to their pool party. I'm going to throw my own pool party. And I'm like, I'm into Marvel. I'm into Star Wars too. So I'm going to wrap it all in together and start up my own thing. And we'll cover basically everything under the Disney umbrella. We'll hit the Disney stuff, the Marvel stuff, and the Star Wars stuff. So
that's so awesome.
How the podcast was born.
It's Johnny, and we can't tell you enough. We are such big fans of not only you, but just your show in general. And for those who don't know, Johnny's podcast is so incredibly entertaining. Every single podcast episode that he puts out, there is just, you can tell there's time and effort put behind it. He not only makes you laugh, but he's honest and he's genuine, and he's seriously, and Caleb and I talk about this all the time, you are seriously the nicest person that literally anyone will ever meet or listen to.
Ugh,
and
God,
we
guys,
just can't. I'm serious.
I didn't send you the Venmo yet. Jeez,
no, this is all.
Wait for it to clear.
Yes. But no, seriously, the show is just so incredibly entertaining. We look forward to it each and every week. And you are just the content over on Instagram. You're always on your A game. The reels are hilarious. The posts, just everything, like A+, like you kill it.
Yeah. And I will say, I know we're just it's probably uncomfortable for you, but just accept it, just embrace it. But we like legit, there are very rare times where a podcast or someone actually make me laugh out loud. Like I'll chuckle or just smile and like, oh, that was funny. You legit will make me, you were doing, I don't know if it was you were doing Rocket Raccoon or something like that. And I was in my car and I was just cracking up because I was like, this is freaking so good. And you're doing like the impressions and the production quality. It's all A game, man. Like you do a fantastic job. So we're all grateful that you decided to pick up the mic and do this. So,
geez, guys, I don't even know what to say. It feels like a setup here. I'm just blushing.
And we've also got you a house.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's dive into kind of the main segment here and talk kind of like parenting Disney style. So Caitlin and I, again, if you're new here, if you're listening for the first time, we are expecting our first child here in November. It's both super exciting and also terrifying. Johnny has been a fantastic counselor and sounding board and has been sending us some good tips and tricks and advice. And we've been so welcome to it because we're both just have no idea what we're doing. It's our first. But we thought like, you know what? Let's talk to one of the biggest Disney fans that happens to be a dad about kind of parenting and doing Disney trips with children.
Mhm.
And we would consider you an expert because you've done this a few times before. And I don't know if have you talked about much how many kids you have and how many trips you got under your belt with the little ones, and why don't you introduce us to what that all looks like?
Sure. Yeah. So we have 6 kids now altogether. We have 2 boys and 4 girls. My oldest son is 14, and then we have twin girls that are 12. My son is Colby, and then we have twin girls, Sydney and Zoe. And then we have another son, Hunter, who is 10. And then my daughter, Harper, is 6. And the youngest is about 3.5 now. Her name's Piper. So
Oh.
That is
6 altogether.
so you're busy, I would say, right? I mean, you're a fairly busy guy
Couple
then.
of things,
Yeah.
couple of things going on. Yeah.
That is so awesome. So you, again, that's why I say we're talking to the expert. You've done this a few times. You
Mhm.
know what to expect. So I think our biggest question, and again, we're not going to deal with this in the very beginning because we only got one toting along, but how do you navigate a trip with so many age groups? Like you've got one that can probably ride all the big rides. You've got a couple that are like, they're still stuck missing out on those bigger rides. Like how do you navigate bringing a bunch of kids that are all different heights and ages to the parks?
Well, I'm a little bit lucky in my situation because I almost to kind of age myself here. It's like I'm playing Nintendo with a game genie. My wife is literally like the dictionary definition of the perfect mom. Like she was put on this planet to someday eventually become a mother. She is the MVP of the family. She makes everything run. She plans the schedule. She has everything mapped out. She knows who likes what type of food, who needs what for clothes, knows how to pack the bag, how to get the stroller ready, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very, very lucky, and almost like with my sports history here, I hit the jackpot. I just absolutely
Aw.
lucked out and got the wife of the century, because it's very easy for me to just kind of show up and like just stand there and wave and be like, "Hi, everybody. I'm the dad."
Here's your lunch
I
money,
help
Johnny.
carry the
Go-
heavy.
yeah.
I help carry the heavy stuff and push the stroller around. But really, the secret to the sauce here, at least for our family, is my wife. She is absolutely phenomenal. But she's a school teacher as well, so she's got the important thing is pack your patient pants and always be willing to expect the unexpected. And you just have to look at, I think, Disney in a completely different way than when you're going as just adults on your own. When you're adults, you can go wherever you want, whenever you want. And when you're there with kids, you go where they want to go when they want to go there. And if they don't want to go there, you're not going to go there. And if you do,
Exactly.
you're probably going to regret it
Yeah.
if you force it. So you just kind of have to go into the trip with that expectation. Like, you are going there with kids. Kids are not meant to be up for that amount of time. They're not meant to be walking around that much. Just, if it's hot when you're at the parks, like they don't like being hot, just like you and I don't like being hot out in the sun. So you just got to make sure you do your best to not let the stress of not kind of sticking to that schedule or missing your favorite ride type of thing. You just kind of let that wash off and just kind of accept that, like, you're there for the kids. And when that happens and you kind of just let it go, to quote Queen Elsa, I guess, that's the key, I think, to having the all those magic moments happen. That's when you see that magic on your daughter's face when she's with Mickey. That's when you break off with the oldest and you go do a ride with just the two of you, and he gives you that hug and says, "Thank you so much for bringing me here again." So
Oh gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Johnny, that just melts my heart.
That's
I can't
cool.
wait for all of that.
We'll just got to get past the sleepless nights, and then
Oh
we'll
my
we'll
gosh.
graduate to that moment. So
But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that's the number one thing that a lot of people, if they have children or if they don't have children, you go to the park, they want to have a plan. Like, I'm a planner. So
Yeah,
like Caleb is
yeah.
more like go with the flow. I'm more like, let's do this for dinner. Let's do this for whatever it is. And I think that's so important. And that's one thing that Caleb and I will have to learn with a little one, is that it's okay for things to not go to plan. And it's okay just to not have a plan in general and kind of just take the day, because our normal day at the park is going to be completely different once we take our daughter. And again, as exciting as that is, it might be a little scary or off-putting, because we're like, okay, is there going to be a tantrum? Is there going to be a time where, like, I don't even, all the things that come up with kids. So I think it's a great message to kind of be like, it's just okay to kind of just go with the flow and just
Yeah.
see how things go. So,
Yep.
and then another question for you that I'm super curious about, obviously we all love Disney here, but there's just so many different ways to do a day at like the Disney parks, whether it's Disneyland or Disney World. So I'm super curious, with you and your wife taking the kiddos to Walt Disney World, what
Mhm.
does like a typical day look like for you guys? Like walk us through that.
Yep. So and that's another thing, like too, everybody does Disney in their own way. There's people that swear by you always rope drop and then you get out of there as soon as you get to like the middle part of the day. You got to go back to your hotel every single day,
Yeah.
have lunch there, rest, go in the pool. And that's just never been our particular style. That's not the way we do it, because the way we look at it is it's so expensive to, like, I'm a value guy, and maybe that's from, like I said, the sales background too, is like everything is numbers and value to me. So the days that we are paying for the entrance to the park, we want to maximize our park time. But to kind of compensate with that, we build in our breaks either by having kind of non-park days in the middle of our vacation. So we'll
Hmm.
go for, maybe we'll extend the trip maybe a little bit longer to do like 2 days in the park and then a day at the resort resting, and then 2 more days at the park, and then another day of rest, and then one final day at the park. So we mix in the rest days and just commit to an entire day
That's smart.
of rest. And the days that we go to the parks, we were always doing the meal plan when it existed, because a lot of times, with my wife's a school teacher, so that kind of limits us on the times of the year that we can go, because she can't just put in for a vacation and take a week or a week and a half
Right.
off. We kind of have to go when the kids are on break from school. So that usually winds up being, for us, is we would typically try to go kind of mid to late August, because one, that's one of the cheapest times of year to go, and when we have 6 kids, we're trying to
Sure.
pinch
Right.
pennies wherever we
Of
can, because it
Yeah.
course.
gets
Yeah.
expensive um, fast. But we'll stay. That's the cheapest time to stay at the resorts as well. So, like I said, when we go to our park days, we try to mix in the that meal plan and have a sit down dining experience, usually for a lunch or like an early dinner, and that's going to get you at least like an hour to 2 hours, maybe max, of like air conditioning, sitting
Yep.
in a nice table, chairs. The kids get the character experience, so they're not bored out of their mind, and it's just a nice, like I said, hour to 2 hour break in the middle of the day where you're still in the park, you're still doing park stuff, but you kind of get that nice break in the middle part of the day too.
No, that's smart. So you stay on property then for every trip, I'm assuming. Is
Yeah,
there a favorite?
uh we've had to mix it up a little bit as the family keeps growing.
Sure.
We've literally grown out of the hotel. When the first trip we went with kids, we stayed at the Art of Innovation, and we just absolutely fell in love with it. So
Hmm.
that worked out perfectly, because it's basically like almost like a one bedroom apartment, and you get the full down bed where the dining room table is, plus the pull out couch as well. So that fit the family perfect. But now that we're up to 6 kids, we technically don't even fit in that hotel anymore. So the last time that we went was the first and only time we've been with all 6. And what we had to do was we did 2 adjoining rooms at the Pop Century, and so you get 4 queen beds,
Mhm.
and everybody just partners up two and two,
Oh
and
my gosh, it
Oh my
hurts.
make it work.
gosh.
It hurts my soul. It hurts
Yeah.
my wallet. Just thinking about it. I whine about it and paying for 2 people, and I can't. I love that there's an accommodation for you guys, but holy smokes, 2 rooms. It's gotta hurt.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's why we go pop, and that's why
I
we
love it.
go end of August. Like, if you
Yeah,
look at those calendars of like where the rates fall, it's typically like the second cheapest time of the year. So we're doing everything we can to
sure.
kind of time it so that it's the cheapest time. We always make sure we buy everything we do in the parks. We do it through. We have a Target Red Card, so the entire trip
Perfect.
is paid
Mhm.
off
Smart.
with Disney gift cards that we buy through Target. And then before the trip, we'll typically buy like a $200 gift card or a $500 gift card, and just
Yep.
save that with us and go into the park with that, and have that in the parks, and charge everything back to the room, and kind of pay it off down at the desk at the end of the night. And if we have any left over, we just save it for the next trip. And if we need another one, we'll just jump on target.com and download another one there, because 5% doesn't seem like that much, but when you
It
add it
adds
up with
up.
six,
Yeah.
with 6 kids in a week to a week and a half, it definitely
Heck
5%
yeah.
adds up fast. I'll take it. for
Sure.
Yeah. And that's awesome that you guys stay at Pop. That was actually the first hotel that Caleb and I stayed at our first trip together to Walt Disney
Love
World.
Pop.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Pop Century. First of all, they have the best. Is it the food court?
Yeah,
the
it's like a
dining
food court,
area?
right? Is that what you guys call it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's so
Yep.
awesome. I love their gift shop. I love how the room. I love how the modern twist on the room. Excuse me, the rooms. I'm so excited I can't even talk. And just the different theming. Overall, that is one resort that people look over, and I'm like, it's amazing.
And the Skyliner is that is worth
Game
Oh
changer.
my gosh,
That is,
yeah.
it is
100%.
a game changer. So we stayed at the Grand Destino Tower this last trip just because we like the rooms and the whatever. But I will
It's a
say,
great resort.
we were missing the Skyliner though. The buses
Heck
are
yeah.
kind of lame. I'm not gonna lie. So the Skyliner totally changed the way we vacation, and we need to get back to a Skyliner resort. Which you're the Disney World guy. It's Pop Century, and remind me Riviera, and then what else?
Art of Animation is
Okay.
right across. It's the mirror image of Pop. So
Got it.
that'll be good for when your little one is maybe getting up to 3, 4, 5, 6, that type of age, because you get all
Okay.
those big characters over there. It's like a mirror image of Pop. Everything is exactly the same. The food court is laid out the same. Gift shop,
Really?
it's all the same, but they have all the giant character statues, and all the rooms are themed to Nemo and
That's
Cars
so cool.
and all that stuff. Yeah, so that's great there. But then I was gonna throw at you: have you guys stayed at Caribbean Beach yet?
No,
We
not
haven't. It's the one.
yet.
It's the big hotel we pass over, right, on that Skyliner.
Yep, that's the biggest Skyliner stop on Disney property. That's where the hub is. That's where the
That's
Art of
right.
Animation and Pop feeds to that branches out and goes to Hollywood Studios, and then it has the line that goes down to Riviera and then to Epcot. So we actually did Disney for our honeymoon, and we stayed at Coronado too. Love Coronado,
Ooh,
just
yeah.
like you guys.
Yeah.
And then we kind of fell into a Caribbean beach stay, and that's my favorite resort that we've ever stayed at is Boardwalk, but that's insanely expensive. So that we typically will try to do a split stay too. So what we'll do, because I'm gonna just keep going off on a tangent.
No, I love
here,
it.
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. We love it.
So from coming down from Boston with 6 kids, flying is just that bill is just insane.
Sure.
Plus just the logistics of 2 adults and 6 kids, that math doesn't exactly balance out. So
Sure.
when we've done it, we've actually bit the bullet and did a road trip and driven down, so all the way from Boston down to Florida. So we kind of got that down to a science too. We found a way to kind of make that work. We could do it in one shot without having to stop once at a hotel.
That's
so
awesome.
what we've done is we'll do a split stay, and we'll stay at the Boardwalk or Caribbean Beach for 2 nights, and we don't do any park days, because that drive is 22 to 24 hours. So we are wiped out by the time we get down there. So it's almost like a vacation to get you ready for your Disney vacation. So we
Yeah.
get down there, and we'll do, like I said, either one night or maybe 2 nights at Boardwalk or Caribbean Beach. So you get a moderate or a little bit better hotel accommodations, a little bit more comfortable, better pool for the kids with the
Yeah.
slides and all that kind of stuff. And then we'd bounce over for the week stay. We go
Smart.
back down to Pop and get the cheapest room that we can. And that's when we're doing all our park time anyway. So who cares what your hotel is when you're
That's
when you're
super
doing your
smart.
park time.
I never even considered. Again, Disneyland, way easier to get around. So we don't really have to
Sure.
think about proximity to the park.
Jumping.
And yeah, exactly. So it's just because you walk. Again, I'm super jealous at how many resorts you guys have and the different feels and stuff. We pretty much
Yeah.
just have only deluxe resorts over here. It's all
Yeah.
$300-$400 plus. And so it's super cost prohibitive for most folks. And
Yeah.
as nice as they are, you just don't get to stay in them because you're like, I just can't do it because the Hilton down the street's $150 a night, and it's just as
Yep.
nice. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and the split stays are something that we've actually never done that we would love to do, especially with a
Yeah.
little one when we plan on taking her over there, having those resort days, because usually when Caleb and I go, we're just go the whole time. Again,
Sure.
you could do it with a little one. We're probably going to be more on the side of probably not doing that and having more of the pool day or just the hanging out at the hotel. But we are so looking forward to that. And there's been so many times where Caleb wants to stay at the Boardwalk, right? Is that the one that you've been wanting
Yeah,
to stay
sure.
at, or Caribbean Beach?
I don't remember.
I don't
There's
remember.
no.
There's so many.
It's the Yacht and Beach Club. I would
That
love
one.
to say the
Yeah.
Yacht and Beach. Yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
Yep.
So
Yeah, best pool on property.
All right, so I've got to ask you again. You're more well versed in Walt Disney World. I've clicked around on it and I got sticker shock, and it like made me sad just looking at how much it costs. But does it make sense for a large family like you guys to do DVC? Does DVC even make financial sense? Does it make? Have you ever looked into it?
Yep.
How often
Yeah,
you go?
we have looked into it. As I explained there, like I'm full in on the Disney bug. Like I'm bought in. Like this to me is like my go-to vacation out for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
I would be more than ready to jump in on DVC right now. My wife is a little bit more hesitant, especially
Sure.
coming out of the pandemic. The last 2 trips down, they've changed from like everything is magic and everything is perfect, and it's been kind of like you can see like a little bit of the shine is worn off. Like it's been like 80-90% like perfect, everything's great, but then you're definitely seeing a little bit of a different experience. So my wife's kind of at that point now where she's like, I think for a good chunk of time there, we were trying to do Disney with the kids at least every other year. And when we could kind of make the numbers work, we did pull it off, I think once going in 2018 and then 2019. But she's at that point now where she's like, I mean, maybe like every 4 or 5 years with the kids, and let's try to go to Washington DC and kind of do that, maybe plan something for the Grand Canyon, kind of do those other kind of big family trip type of thing, and kind of mix it up. So until we get to that point where I know, like I said, value, like when I know we're committed to going for a very long time, then I'm ready to jump in. But we've looked at renting DVC points. We tried to do that on the last trip. We were going to try to stay at the Animal Kingdom Lodge by renting points, and the dates didn't line up with what they had available. So
we've done it once. We rented, again, a little easier when we're doing like a studio or something like that, but we rented points to stay at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and we did a Savannah room, and let me tell you, it was
perfect.
So cool walking out and being like, there's a giraffe like eating out of a tree right here. That is a true, and I'm sure kids would just be like, what is going on? There's a zebra. It is pretty unreal.
Absolutely.
And it's just such a great way to save money as well. Like without doing DVC, like being able to rent the points.
Definitely.
I mean, we save so much money being able to do that. So
I truly want, and Johnny, you would understand this. I want to walk around like the Grand Californian out here, the Grand Floridian out there. I want to walk around and people and be like, what do you do? How did you make this happen? Do you sell drugs? Can I be a associate of yours? Because there's no way. I see these big families and I'm like, how do you do it? Because you can make a fantastic living, but Disney is that expensive to where even people making a fantastic living, it would be a stretch to do that. So I don't get it. One day I'd love to understand how they all do that, but it's a mystery. You know what? Before we get to the final questions here, I do want to ask, we don't want to end it on not a negative note, but I want to ask if you're willing to share, is there just a total like parenting fail moment in the parks that you experienced? Like, hey, man, we messed it up on that one.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
This is one of those stories where like at the time it was one of the scariest experiences of our life. But now years later, it's like we tease our little guy and laugh about it all the time. So the very first time that we took the kids down to Disney, like I said, at that point, I wasn't a Disney crazy fan at that point. So we were just kind of down there, and somebody that my wife knew, I think, texted us on our Hollywood Studios day, and we had a character breakfast. And while we were at the breakfast, they were like, oh, you have to try to do this Jedi experience thing. Like you go to this place and you sign your kid up, and then you go over to the stage at a certain time, and they put the kid in like a Jedi cloak and give him a lightsaber, and they bring him up on stage and kind of go through this it's like a whole show, whole song and dance with like, they're making the kids a Jedi. They bring Darth Vader out and the stormtroopers. It's a huge thing. You guys will love it. You got to do it. So we came out of the breakfast and we went over to that, I don't know if you're familiar in Hollywood Studios, where there's like that really nice water fountain right next to the Starbucks there, right when you first come into the park.
Yep.
So we were kind of like, okay, this is our like break point. Like let's park we had 2 double strollers because we had 4 kids with us at the time. So I got 1 stroller, my wife's got hers. We're both looking at the paper map spread out. Like, all right, where the heck is this Jedi thing? Like, where do we got to go sign up for that? The kids, unbeknownst to us, jumped out of the stroller and were like reaching into the fountain and playing with the fountain, and we're like, all right guys, come on, we gotta go, it's over here. So parenting fail, classic parenting fail. Did not pay attention closely enough to make sure and do the head count that all 4 kids got into the double strollers. So we thought we had all 4 kids with us. We headed over to where the Jedi training thing was. We parked the strollers and we were like, come on, guys, let's go over and get you signed up. And we turn around, we're like, 1, 2, 3.
Oh no.
Where's Hunter?
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought he was in your stroller. And she's like, my wife's like, no, he was in your stroller. And I was like, oh my God, we lost Hunter.
Oh,
And I'm like, you stay here with the 3 kids. I'll try to backtrack and go find him. And I was like, it was like a movie. Like I was that dad, like going through, backtracking my steps through Disney, going past like the dinosaur pool,
Yeah.
Indiana Jones, screaming at the top of my lungs, Hunter, just trying to, like I said, kind of cover my tracks and go back.
Sure.
And then I was like, okay, we started at the fountain, go back to the fountain. Maybe he's somewhere near the fountain. And as I approached the fountain, screaming his name, I could see a cast member on the ground on her knees with him in her lap. Just she's hugging him and he's crying his eyes out. Then I start crying my eyes out. I'm like, oh my God, that's my son. That's my son.
Oh, Johnny.
And the real parenting fail, even on top of that, was like in what's running through my head this entire time is, so my son's birthday is March 4th. And we did this trip during April vacation week up here. So at the time we're like, okay, like look how expensive this trip is. If Hunter is 3 years old, he's X amount of hundreds of dollars. But if he's 2, wink, wink, he's free. So I'm like,
right.
let's just maybe not tell him that he has his birthday until after we get back from Disney. And my wife's like, are you serious? Like, do you really want to lie to him? I'm like, well, we don't have to lie. We just don't tell him we just don't mention the birthday until we get back from Disney.
I love that.
Our fear was like the older kids would be like, he's really 3. Disney would be like, boom, like another $950 bill. So as I'm like running through the park, screaming his name in my head, I'm like, he doesn't even know he's 3 yet. He doesn't even know he's 3.
My boy.
We had a double fail there, but luckily, knock on wood, it all worked out in the end, and we got him back. So
oh my gosh, I love that you guys
can tell another story another day.
Yeah, I love that you guys can laugh about it now, but I cannot imagine the moment of like you and your wife.
God.
I would be a mess.
Yeah, I remember like getting lost in a grocery store and that, like, oh my gosh, but that's 4 walls, like that's pretty easy, right? A couple aisles down, but Disney World, that is another beast. But I'm so happy that it had a happy ending.
Yeah, it all worked out. Yeah.
Hunter made it home.
Yeah, and the sweet cast member too. That's so awesome that she was doing that with him. That's so sweet.
Yeah. Yep.
This is okay. So this might be insensitive to some folks for at home. They might be a little offended by this question, and just upset with Johnny. Yeah, let me. I'm teeing it up here. Why do you hate Walt Disney's creation so much? It was the last ride he worked on before his untimely death over here on the West Coast. But Pirates of the Caribbean Disneyland edition, why do you hate the original creation so much? I want to know.
No disrespect to Walt himself. Clearly, he's at the top of the pedestal. I don't have my opinions meant to hurt his feelings. But so I've only been to Disneyland twice, and the first time that we came out, it was down for refurbishment. So that was going into Disneyland my first time. I'm like, I want to do all the rides that exist at both parks, so like I can have that fun experience of like talking and comparing which one's better, what did I like better at this one than over that one. So I was really bummed that I didn't get to do Pirates the first time. So when I was coming out earlier this year, everybody that I was going there with was like, we have to get you on Pirates. Like that's like one of our number one things on the to-do list is we got to get Johnny on Pirates. And to be fair, every Disneyland fan that I know is like, our Pirates is so much better than your Pirates. It's the best Pirates. Your Pirates is trash. Like it's the worst. Once you go on our Pirates, you'll never even want to go on your Pirates again. You'll never enjoy it or experience it another way. So I had this version of the ride completely built up in my head. And when I went out there for that trip earlier this year, it just happened to be that we got into a completely packed full boat, and I was in the very front row, all the way on the left. And at the time I had like one of those little drawstring backpacks, and I was actually meeting a couple friends. We were going to go to the Magic Key Terrace for dinner that night. So I had a little bit of a nicer outfit on and had stuff in my bag. Went down that first drop and got drenched. I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, you don't get wet on Pirates. And it's like I just got off Kali River Rapids or or something. Like, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like, that set me off in kind of a bad point there from the start. And I've talked to a few different people, and some people seem to think that Disney does play with the speed of the boats, and it's a longer experience, yes, and there's more to see, more animatronics, and it's a longer version of the Walt Disney World ride. But being soaking wet and kind of starting off in that bad mood right out of the gate, the ride felt like it was like 7 hours long. I'm like, when is this freaking ride going
Yeah.
to be over? I just want
Yeah.
to get out of the boat. This is horrible. So it's just, I think kind of everything was stacked up against
Sure.
it. It was incredibly overhyped. I got way more wet than I ever thought I was going to get. And
Right.
it felt like it was almost going backwards in time.
I can
and
totally.
I hate it. And I legit just flat out hate the queue too. Like, the queue is so much worse than what we were lucky enough to have here in Walt Disney World. So those 4 things all combined, I was like, okay, like, and I'm a guy too. Like, I really don't have a loyalty to Walt Disney World over Disneyland. I don't care. I'll say whatever I feel like is better at Disneyland, and it doesn't bother me at all. But like, I was like, you know what, this one here, I'm sticking with my home park. I'm going
Yeah.
with Disney, with Disney World's Pirates. And sounds like I've ruffled a few feathers, obviously.
Just a few. I mean, it's a fair point.
In the
It is
Disneyland community.
It is a totally fair point. Yes, the way they hyped it up, probably a little not fair to the ride, because you just probably expecting this mind-blowing experience. I do love the pacing. I like the slow, but yes, you're correct. There are some boats you'll be in, if it's too heavy or what have you, or they are kind of trying to slow traffic down, where you're literally like, it feels like you're at a standstill, and you'll just be kind of just sitting there next to people eating. You're like, hey, how's the roll? Can you pass me one? But I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
I did ride it a second time, and it was a lot better the second time I was there.
Yeah.
I was like more in the middle of the boat, didn't get wet, and it definitely felt like it was going a lot faster. And there's obviously a ton of better animatronics than on that version than there is on the Walt Disney World ride. So I appreciate all those extra bells and whistles. And like I said, it was a better experience when you're not drenched and it doesn't feel like it's going 2 miles an hour.
I don't blame you there. I hate being wet, especially if you're going to a nice dinner. I get that. So.
Literally every time we go, I'm going to just speak a little bit for Caleb right here. Every time we go on that ride, I'm all excited to go down the drop. And like, I like getting wet, except for on Grizzly River Run. That one, I'm like, that's a whole other level for me. But it's one of those things where like every time we go down, without fail, within like 2 seconds, Caleb's like, I'm soaking wet, because like a big wave came in the side.
It stinks.
Yes, or like prior to the drop, it's too hot in there for him. So he's like, it's so hot in here, I don't want to go on this
No, my
ride.
complaint is, it used to be the ride where we'd escape from the summer heat, and they would be blasting the AC in there. I mean, it would be so cold. And I run hot and stuff. That'd be actually kind of cold. Post-pandemic, I will say they've learned that their AC bill is too high. They're like, hey, we can cut down on this, and people won't complain, because it'll be muggy sometimes. It's way humid in there.
Sure.
So I just I get a little angry at just that whole shenanigans, because it's not fair, and I paid a lot to be there. Okay. Last question, I think, related to the parenting Disney style, but what we want to know is, what park would you recommend most for families? And if a family had to skip one Walt Disney World park, if they only had 4 days over there, or 3 days, what have you,
3 days, yeah.
what park would you recommend they skip, and why?
So it's a tough thing for me to answer, because I as a guy that's obviously known for like being very opinionated and putting what I think out there, I try to always like never get into that realm of like telling other people like, this is what I think is the best way, and this is how you have to do it. Because to me, Disney is such a personal experience, and it's different for everybody. Some people love the thrill rides, some people love the slower dark rides, or the kind of the history type stuff. With Walt, they like the more old-fashioned type stuff. So it's kind of hard for me to like literally pick one thing for a certain person and tell them this is the way to do it. But what I can say is, like, kind of just generally speaking, if you have kids that are like elementary school age kids that love doing the rides, Magic Kingdom is going to obviously be your go-to layup winner right there. It's the most rides in the park. It's the most rides that'll fit their height range and probably their thrill level that they're going to be looking for. So if you have kids in that kind of age range, I would definitely go towards Magic Kingdom. If you have like a little infants, like very little kids, basically treat it like a adults only vacation, and go to Epcot, take your time, and there's Turtle Talk with Crush and Nemo and Spaceship Earth and Living with the Land. There's plenty of stuff that you can go on with that little one and enjoy some type of ride. But there's obviously enough there that you two, as the adults, can just enjoy that cute little baby in the stroller or in the baby Bjorn carrier if you have one of those, and you can still drink around the world, still enjoy all the different snack booths and that type of thing. And to me, Animal Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, for us, it typically ends up being somewhere between a half day and like a 2/3 day. A lot of the times when we go to those parks, if you rope drop those parks, you can get those big e-ticket rides out of the way right away, first thing in the day, and then you can kind of plan to get out of there a little bit earlier and maybe go to a nice dinner somewhere at one of the resorts, or somewhere else on the property, or just go back to your resort a little bit earlier and enjoy the pool type of thing. So it's maybe cheating here, not giving you one layup answer here, but like to me, it really depends on what type of kids age range you have with you
Sure.
when you're doing that trip.
No, that makes sense. I love it. Epcot. We'll do Epcot.
Yeah, Caleb loves Epcot. We could go on the
Yeah.
Nemo ride all day. So
Definitely.
yeah, we are jealous of that ride. I truly, speaking for myself, I wish we had that version over here instead of the submarine rides.
Yeah.
We love Nemo, but we just never ride that ride because it makes us so claustrophobic, and it's just warm, and so we do love doing that one over there. It's so nice. And then the little, like, the animal exhibit that you can go through, like the seas.
Yeah, it's like a full on
It's
like
so
aquarium.
cool.
Yeah, it's like an aquarium.
Yeah, and especially
Yep.
for little ones, like you could spend so much time in there just like looking at all the sea creatures, and just that'd be a blast.
Yeah, our kids love that area there, looking at all the things in the tank, and that's where our version of Turtle Talk with Crush is.
That's
so
right.
It all kind of fits theming wise too. So that's a good spot to soak in that air conditioning and get a nice, easily 2-hour break, and keep the kids entertained while you as the parent can be like,
Yeah, exactly.
a nice piece of wall to lean against while the kids look at the octopus for 10 minutes.
Yes. I love it. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. Again,
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure.
always fun talking to you. Before we let you go, where can people find you? Plug anything you want. We want to hear where the people can go listen and view the goodness you're putting out on Instagram.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, guys. So basically, any of your major podcasting apps, you're going to be able to find the show. You can just search DMSW and it should come right up for you. The name of the show is the DMSW podcast. Then, like I said before, the D is for Disney, M is for Marvel, SW for Star Wars. We cover basically everything under the Disney umbrella. And as far as social media goes, I mean, technically I'm on Facebook and Threads and Twitter, but basically my go-to is Instagram. So if you want to reach out and talk to me, the DMs are always open. Comment on a post, we can talk through there. That's, to me, that has been the biggest shocker to me. That is, if you told me when I was starting the podcast, what do you think your Instagram is going to be, my thought was it's just a place for me to like post that a new episode is out and like put a link in a story, like type of thing.
Yeah.
I had no clue that like that would be my number one connection to friendships like you guys, and meeting other podcasters, meeting people that listen to the podcast and come back and check and interact with you every single week. So that is, Instagram has been the biggest surprise for me. And then just the Reels thing kind of coming out of nowhere too. Like, just, I remember doing like the first one, I was like, oh, that was kind of fun, and got a couple likes and a couple laughs, and I'm like, all right, so this is, I guess, a little niche that I can kind of try to knock out here for myself. So
Yeah.
like you had mentioned earlier, like I take a lot of pride in like bringing humor into the Disney realm. So like that is my favorite thing, even more than just doing the podcast in general, is I just like being a silly goose, and like I just want to make people laugh. And whether it's doing a stupid impression or a little funny skit at the beginning of an episode, or putting out some type of reel, that is my favorite thing, is to just make people laugh. So that's what we're trying to do here on the podcast and on the Instagram feed. And if you want to reach out there, at the DMSW podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Johnny. And seriously, go check it out. It's a weekly listen for us. It's a must listen. We're not going to hold it against them that it comes out the same day as ours does. Go listen to both. It's all good stuff. We love what Johnny's doing. And again, thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Johnny. We
My
appreciate
pleasure,
you.
guys. Thank you so much for having me on here, and we will definitely get you. I got some. I'm known for my little eyeball emoji teases on Instagram, and I have some. I think a really fun idea to get you guys and a couple of our other podcasting friends on the episode here all together pretty soon. So
That'd be
nice.
awesome.
I love it.
yeah, we'll have some fun.
All right. See you soon, Johnny.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Wasn't he awesome?
We love Johnny.
He's seriously, again, like I mentioned before, nicest guy in the world. He's been supporting our show from the very beginning and vice versa. We caught on to him early on and we just kind of latched onto each other and have just been keeping up with each other's stuff from the very beginning.
Yeah, we love him. He is just so kind, and he's just literally, his motto is teamwork makes the dream work, and I cannot think of any other person who nails that.
Yeah, he lives it
does.
out. He what is it? Walks the talk? Talks the walk. Walks the talk.
Walks, I don't know.
He does something. He does it well.
Yes, he does.
Johnny, thanks so much for coming on. We love you, seriously. You, again, if you haven't checked out the DMSW podcast, please go do it. It's a fantastic show, and he talks about a ton of different things and does a fantastic job on everything over there. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a blast. You can find us over on Instagram and Threads at Market House Podcast. Again, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Giant help to the show. Head over to Patreon to support the show, markethousepodcast.com/support. You can support us over there by contributing monthly, and we will give you some more perks and extra content.
And don't forget for our 100th episode coming up very, very soon to get in your little either voice recordings or just written text on what you've been enjoying with the show, your favorite moments, favorite guests. We are so, so, so excited to dive into those next week.
Yes, we are, and you can find that link in the episode description, but markethousepodcast.com for a quick link over there. Join us next week for another episode, a special episode, episode 100. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. We love you guys.
Bye.